Hi, this is Ryan Rathje, and I wanted to pass along some information for parents regarding dual credit and PSEO for next school year. While PSEO and dual credit are often used interchangeably, there are some subtleties that should be understood. So we'll start with some basic definitions. All PSEO classes are dual credit, but not all dual credit are PSEO. The difference is largely in who is paying for them. So any dual credit class is a class where a high school student takes a college course and gets high school and college credit at the same time. PSEO is the state program that Minnesota uses to pay for the dual credit class, and that's for Minnesota residents. If you're a non-Minnesota resident, you can still take the college courses for dual credit, but you have to pay the tuition. That tuition rate is typically reduced from what is normally charged if you're an undergrad after high school, so it's still worth it to do that even if you're a non-Minnesota resident. As far as taking courses is concerned, they need to be a graduation requirement, whether it's an elective course or a core course. We want students to take the same amount of courses each semester because we don't have semester-based courses at St. Croix, very few anyway. As a junior, those courses need to be taken online and asynchronous, so that way they can fit it anywhere into their schedule. For seniors, if they have less than 12 credits, they can do just like the juniors, take them online asynchronous. But if they want to take 12 or more credits, they also have the option of what we call full-time PSEO, where they can go in person to the college campus. Or it can be a combination of online and in-person classes. They still must take religion at St. Croix, and we position religion either first set or eighth set so they can work it around their schedule easy. And if they're full-time, there's a reduced tuition schedule. You can find that in the daily announcements in the document about PSEO. As far as where students take courses from in the common schools that are used, our number one popular one right now is probably Northwestern St. Paul. They do a really nice job in handling their PSEO program. Inver Hills is probably our number two, probably due to location to St. Croix, but it really can be anybody. As far as common courses to take, there are a lot of options, but there are two that you should consider. In the English front, you need a graduation requirement of both junior and senior year, 2 full years of English. Just about every degree program that students will go into after high school at the college level requires a writing course, writing and research, something like that, or an intro to literature type of course. Some degrees might add a speech component to that. So those are great courses for students to take so that they can knock off some of the required courses for their potential degree. Social studies is also another one that we recommend. The graduation requirement for high school is that their junior year they have to take a U.S. history class. So that's equal to 4 credits. And then their senior year, they need to take a U.S. government class and an economics class. That could be micro or macro. It doesn't really matter. Those courses typically are 4 credit or 3 and 3, depending on what those are. Why English and social studies are the recommendation? Well, there are certain courses that are easier to catch up on if you get behind. So English and social studies are heavily based in reading. So if a student gets behind, they can block off some of the time that's needed to catch up, and their learning isn't usually impacted too heavily. That sort of strategy does not work as well in a math or a science or a world language course. So as students are learning how to deal with the structure of college courses, these are good ones to learn those self-regulation skills. Save math, science types of courses for more face-to-face opportunities. We do have some in-house dual credit courses. These are ones, again, dual credit where they're in addition to St. Croix tuition, and they're not paid for by the state of Minnesota PSEO program. So in the math area, we have Mr. Hebner. He's teaching an applied algebra and trig class first semester, and then statistics second semester. We do have computer sciences as an off year for that. And then we have intro to psychology with Mrs. Hillstrom. And that's a full year of that course. Often get the question on transferring credits. Every school has its own policy on the transfer of credits. But as long as you're taking common prereq courses and you pass with a C or better, chances of accepting are pretty high. We do get recommendations that students do not try to take dual credit courses in an area which they might be interested in majoring. The college that you eventually go to is going to want you to take their courses on their campus. So this is not a time for students to explore and say, well, I'm thinking about this and I'm interested in that. This is really a time for students to knock off some of the prereqs that you would need regardless of your degree path. There's a thing called the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum that a lot of the Minnesota State schools participate in. These are good common prerequisite courses for students to stick to. Here's an example from Inver Hills where, and this is common for a lot of schools, they'll have different goals that they want students to get as they look at their undergraduate degree. And here's an example like goal 3, natural science. They're saying, okay, take 2 courses from this list. And they'll say, okay, you got to take one from a couple of different subcategories and one's got to be a lab. So as you look at the various courses, you see that 3 right there. That means the 3 credit course. Here's one that's a 5 credit course. There's the L, meaning that's a lab course. And the nice thing is with the different goals, they'll put that at the end. So this course, this environmental science course, not only fulfills goal 3 in this listing, but it also tells you it fulfills goal 10. So if you're really strategic about planning of your courses, you can knock off a lot of the goals with some good planning. Getting the courses into the St. Croix schedule, well, first you sign up for all St. Croix courses during the registration process, which our students have already gone through. Then you fill out the dual credit PSEO plan for the first and second semester, and you submit that to me for approval. And then you start the process of applying to the college and registering for the courses. And then once you're registered for the courses, students provide me with a screenshot or an email of that registration. They can send that to me over email or Google Chat, and then we'll substitute an online study hall in place of the course that it is going to replace. Things for parents to know. Number one, these are college courses, so they should expect the level of rigor and a significant time investment. Typical rule of thumb is 2 to 3 times the number of credits. So a 3 credit course might need 6 to 9 hours of work per week. Grades are permanent. The high school versus the transfer credit. So we mentioned before that things would typically transfer if they get a C or better. For high school credit, they just need to pass the course. So it could even be a D-. The professor thing up at the top too, should also remember that professors are not trained educators usually. While they're usually required to take some sort of teaching course, they don't have a full education degree like their K-12 teachers do. So they may run into some differing teaching techniques or practices that sometimes frustrate students, so just be aware of that. Again, go for generals with the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum or things like that. The state of Minnesota has said that 4 credit class equals 1 year of high school, so as we plan for that, it's really important that you keep that in mind. You don't want to take a 3 credit U.S. history class because that's not going to fulfill the entire U.S. history credit. You'd have to take another class. So you probably would have to take 6 credits in that case just to meet the 4 credit requirement. And then you're not allowed to drop classes. So even if the college allows it, or sometimes they even encourage it, sometimes the professors, if a student's not doing well in their course, will encourage them to drop. We cannot have any dropping of classes. You should also understand calendars are different. So our St. Croix schedule and the schedule for that college will probably be on different schedules. And there are some advantages to that, and there's some disadvantages. You might be planning a spring break trip, but your student has college classes to work on and still assignments. The advantage might be is that they're done earlier. A lot of the colleges wrap up their courses by the first week of May or so, and so they might have the last 3 weeks of St. Croix calendar year without their college class. You should understand due to FERPA laws that colleges will not and cannot speak with you as a parent. They can only deal with the student. So no matter what's going on, you are not going to know. There's a second semester registration warning. A lot of times students think that once they hand me their sheet and they're all set. No, they have to still apply to the college. They have to register for class. And then around October, they'll get an email from their college about registering for second semester. If they don't keep up on top of their email with that, they're going to miss that registration warning, and sometimes they won't get the classes they need for second semester, which can really cause some chaos if it's a graduation requirement. As you consider this for your students, you should realize that not every student is ready to take college courses when they're in high school, because you're skipping developmental levels. We wouldn't say that every student's ready to skip from third grade to sixth grade. So we need to understand that here as well. And that's okay. And you want to take that into consideration, that you're going to accelerate everything, your college and your life timeline. Students who pick away at a bunch of college courses are going to have to choose their major early. So if your student isn't really set on what they want to do with their life when they grow up, or what kind of degree they want to go into, I'd recommend they take this very slowly, so that way they still have time to mature and time to figure out the gifts that God has given them as they consider what they want to do at the college level. One of the biggest things as a parent, I think you should understand the school life balance and take everything into consideration as far as what your child is involved with. Are they in a bunch of different extracurriculars? Are they involved in band or concert choir or choraleers? Are they involved in the plays? Do they have a job? Do you want them to sleep and be healthy? All these things you should take into consideration how much of the college life you want to insert into their high school life. Some recommendations that I have, an advanced rigor course before taking a college course, whether it's an AP or chemistry, something like that, so they get used to doing some of this work on their own. They're not going to be handheld. For juniors, I'd start with one per semester, just dipping your toe into the experience to see how it works. But you could do 2. Seniors, you can do up to 4, but I don't recommend 3. It just doesn't work well, since you have to substitute a 1-for-1. So substituting in 1 class or 2 classes is okay. But when you get to 3, now you're almost taking a full college load, but you're still taking 5 St. Croix classes, plus probably all the extracurriculars and other things that a student's involved in. And that's just not going to work real well. Evaluate those commitments outside of school so that everything can be successful. Since you're starting a permanent college transcript, that's the part that can't get stopped once you start it. So if a student's taking a course and it doesn't go well in their junior year, someday when they're in their adult life and they want to go to grad school, that class from junior year is going to show up on their transcript. So that those grades are permanent, and we want to make sure that if you're going to do this, you're all in. I recommend as parents to let your student drive the process. If they don't follow through on things, which is common, that just means they're not ready, and that's okay. Ask your student how things are going. Ask them to, show you what kind of things they're working on and what they're learning, but you're going to need to trust that they're going to take care of things. Some red flags that we've seen over the years would be if the parent's driving the process. If you're filling out the forms and signing them up and applying for them, this is probably not going to go so well. So we need the students to have some self-regulation skills and some maturity here in this process. If they're ready for it, they'll do it. And if it falls through the cracks in the application process, then that's okay. Then you've probably dodged a bullet. Because if you have to do everything during the application process, you're not going to be able to do everything while they're taking the courses, and they're not going to take it as seriously, and things probably will not go well. If your student doesn't show internal motivation or lacks organizational skills, a lot of email, if they don't stay on top of it, or they need a lot of reminders to complete things, or has frequent missing or late assignments, these are all red flags. They're not to say they're a no-go, but you should just be aware that if there's a bunch of these things that you see within your student, I'd be very cautious. So what's a student do? Number 1, they fill out the dual credit PSEO plan form and give it to me by the deadline. The deadline is May 1st, which is a long way off, but it needs to happen a lot sooner than that. If it's PSEO, there's a PSEO NOSR form also available. Both those forms are available in the academic office. Here's what the plan form looks like. The student's going to fill out their name, what institution, which college course they're going to take, how many credits it is, and then what St. Croix course they're replacing it with. And we do that for both semesters. So we have the full year planned out. On the back side, there are some reminders and to turn it in by May 1st, realizing if you don't meet the deadlines, you can't do it, and those other check marks there. The NOSR form looks like this. Some of the schools, including Northwestern St. Paul, do this digitally, but the parents and the student fills out section 1. Part 2 is for the school, St. Croix, and then part 3 is for the college. When this form gets turned in, we also send the transcript, so that doesn't have to be requested. However, anything else that the college wants, the student needs to provide. So once they fill out the plan form and get it approved by me, they follow the directions of the institution to enroll and then meet all the deadlines. Once they get accepted, they need to register for the courses and then provide proof of that registration, either screenshot or email to me, and then the St. Croix schedule will be adjusted. And then again, just a reminder, students have to apply to the college and register for the class. It's not just automatic that they're getting into that course, so they need to follow the directions they get from their institution. Some dates to remember here. We got some March deadline dates for the April ACT test. May 1st is that deadline to turn in their plan to me. And the last day of school, May 22nd, is when they need to be confirmed in their courses and their registration. If you have any additional questions, there's a document in the daily announcements that's running every day and probably will for the rest of the school year. Or you can get a hold of me if you have anything specific to talk about with your student. Thank you for your time. Blessings.